My wife secretly invested $250, $0 from our savings into a shady scheme behind my back, and now she's claiming I owe her half of our house, worth over $1 million, after turning our marriage into a legal battlefield over betrayal, money, and false promises. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife turned out to be a complete liar and cheat. Honestly, I thought we had a pretty solid marriage, two professionals, decent life, no major issues. But then out of nowhere, everything exploded. The moment that changed everything came faster than I could process. It started with a strange feeling, an uneasy gut instinct that something was off. Little things at first. Phone buzzing constantly late at night, her trying to hide her screen when I walked into the room, her avoiding certain questions about her day. But what really set me off was a series of strange bank statements I found on our shared account, something I never normally looked at. Turns out, had secretly invested $250, $0 of our savings into some shady scheme. I mean, she told me she was just putting some money into stocks, but I dug deeper. The statements showed transfers to some offshore account and the name of the scheme. It was something I'd never heard of, but it looked like a scam. She'd been funneling our savings into it for months, all behind my back. I was stunned. We worked hard for that money and she just threw it away like it was nothing. But it wasn't just about the money. What hit me harder was the betrayal. The sense that she'd been lying to me, hiding stuff, sneaking around. And then I started noticing other things. She was unusually secretive with her phone, deleting messages, making sure I didn't see her screen. She was acting nervous whenever I asked her about her finances or her day. I caught her in little lies, too, saying she was at the gym when she was actually meeting some guy at a bar downtown. I saw the texts, the flirtatious messages, the way she responded to him like he was her world. It wasn't just emotional, it was physical. I could tell by the way she'd slip away, come back with a new excuse about work or how tired she was. But the biggest shock came when I decided to check her phone one night. I needed to know the truth. That's when I found the messages, not just flirtation but plans to meet up, talk about their future. Her words, not mine, had been cheating on me for months. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? I'd always trusted her, and now I had proof she'd been lying to my face the entire time. I was furious, sick to my stomach, and feeling more betrayed than I ever thought possible. I knew I needed to confront her, but I also knew that this revelation was just the beginning of a long, painful journey. The moment I found those messages, everything changed. I remember sitting there, phone trembling in my hand, trying to process what I'd just read. Was planning to meet him again that night. Her words were so casual, like she was talking about grabbing coffee with a friend, but I knew better. I'd seen the texts, flirty, suggestive, and full of promises. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Was I blind or just stupid? For not noticing sooner. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I took a deep breath and waited. I needed to confront her face to face. When she got home that evening, she was acting more bitchy than usual, snapping at me, throwing around insults about my job, my family, anything to deflect. I knew she was hiding something, but I played it cool, waiting for her to slip up. When she finally asked what was wrong, I just looked her in the eyes and said, "Who is he? Who have you been sneaking around with?" Her face went pale for a second, then she started with her usual bullshit. "You're overreacting, it's nothing. Just some guy from work, nothing serious. You're imagining things as usual." She lied so easily, like she was used to getting away with it, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I knew everything about the money, the affair, the lies. Her reaction was priceless. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and then started with her manipulative bullshit. "Oh, so now I'm a liar. You're just jealous because I don't want to be stuck in a boring marriage where I can't breathe." That's when I felt the anger boiling over. How could she be so callous, so dismissive? I told her I'd had enough, that I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. She just smirked and said, "You're overreacting as usual. Just calm down, it's not a big deal." But to me it was everything. The betrayal, the lies, the fact that she'd been screwing around behind my back while pretending everything was fine. I asked her outright if she'd been sleeping with him, and she shrugged, acting like I was crazy. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Maybe you're just insecure. That was the moment I realized she wasn't going to admit anything easily. She was good at lying, at manipulating, and at turning things around. I felt so betrayed, so hurt, that I couldn't even speak for a few minutes. I just stared at her, trying to hold back the rage and the tears. I knew I had to decide what to do next, but right then, all I could feel was this crushing sense of loss. My wife, the woman I loved, was a liar, a cheat, and a manipulator. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life, and somehow I knew this was only the beginning of a much darker journey. The days that followed were like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I kept replaying everything in my head, her lies, her sneaky texts, the money she'd secretly invested. The more I thought about it, the more furious I got. I felt like I'd been taken for a fool, and worse, I started questioning everything about our life together. How much of what she told me was real? Was the house, the car, the vacations, all built on lies? The thought of losing everything she claimed was ours, especially that house worth over $1 million, started to consume me. I decided I had to get some clarity, so I started digging into her financials more thoroughly. I pulled bank statements, credit card records, anything I could find. That's when I discovered the $250, $0 she secretly invested into some shady scheme. It wasn't just reckless, it was criminal. She'd hidden it from me, lied about the source of the money, and now I was staring at the possibility that she'd lost everything, or worse, she'd been scammed herself. I couldn't believe she'd risked all our hard work on some scam. That realization made my blood boil even more. But what cut deeper was the fact that she'd been lying about the affair all along. I found texts, photos, even secret receipts for hotel stays and dinners. It was like she'd been living two lives. I felt sick. I wondered how long she'd been doing this, how many nights she'd spent with him while pretending to be the perfect wife. I was hurt, yes, but I was also furious. Furious that she'd betrayed me over some guy, over money, over her own selfishness. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all of this? How did I not see the signs? I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I sat her down one evening, told her I knew everything about the affair, the money, the lies. Her face twisted into this bitchy smirk. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "You're just insecure. I don't know what you want from me." I looked at her and said, "You think I don't see what you're doing? You think I don't know you're cheating? You've been lying about everything. The house, the money, you've been playing me for a fool." She tried to deny it, of course. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was paranoid, that I was jealous. But I wasn't buying any of it. I told her she was a liar and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wanted her to admit what she'd done, but she just acted like she was the victim. That's when I realized she was good at twisting things around, making herself look innocent. I felt a mixture of rage, sadness, and disgust. How could I have been so blind? How could she do this to me, to us? I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I had to decide what to do next, whether to fight for the marriage or to cut ties completely. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to let her keep playing me. Not anymore. This wasn't just about the money or the affair. It was about respect, trust, and the fact that she'd thrown everything away for her own selfish reasons. I was done pretending everything was okay. After that confrontation, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't just sit around and watch her continue to lie and manipulate. I started to gather everything, screenshots of the texts, bank statements, the proof of her shady investments. I wanted to be ready if I needed to take legal action or just confront her again with undeniable evidence. The more I dug, the more I uncovered how deep her deception ran. She'd been funneling money into that scheme for months, and I had no idea how much of our savings she'd already lost or what she'd promised to that guy she was cheating with. It was like a house of cards, and I knew it was only a matter of time before it all collapsed. One night I decided I had enough. I sat her down again and told her I wanted a divorce. Not just that, I wanted full transparency. She tried to deny everything again, but I pulled out the receipts and proof I'd collected. Her face turned pale, and for the first time she looked genuinely scared. "You don't understand," she snapped, trying to dismiss it all. "You're overreacting, you're just jealous. I've been doing this for us. I was trying to fix things, make us better." I Couldn't believe the bullshit coming out of her mouth. She was lying so smoothly it was like she'd practiced her entire life. I told her she was done. I wasn't going to stay with someone who lied, cheated, and gambled away our future. I told her I wanted her out of the house, and I wanted her to leave the money she stole to fix the mess she made. She threw a fit, calling me a controlling bastard, saying I was ruining her life, that she was the victim here. But I didn't care. I knew I had to protect myself and what was left of our assets. The house, the savings, everything. I made it clear I was going to fight for what's mine. The next few days were chaos. She refused to leave, kept trying to guilt-trip me, threatened to take half of everything, including the house. She even claimed she was entitled to it because she invested her time and effort into our marriage, like that somehow justified her betrayal. I had to get a lawyer, and that's when the real nightmare started. She hired her own, and suddenly we were in a legal battlefield over money, the house, and her false promises. I never thought I'd see the day a marriage would turn into a war over betrayal and greed, but that's exactly what happened. Every time I looked at her, I felt a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. I loved her once. I really did. But now I saw her for what she truly was: selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything we built for her own selfish gain. The worst part: she's still insisting she's the victim, still lying her ass off, trying to turn me into the bad guy. But I've got the proof. I've got the truth. And I'm not backing down. I want to get out of this mess and rebuild my life, far away from her lies. The legal battle dragged on for months. Every day felt like some twisted game of chess, with her trying to spin her stories and me trying to hold onto what little was left of the life I thought we shared. She kept claiming she was entitled to half the house, that her investment in the scam somehow justified her claims, and that I owed her because she sacrificed so much. It was infuriating. She lied through her teeth, spinning stories about how she was just trying to save us, that her affair was just a mistake she was trying to fix. But I saw right through her. Her words were nothing but manipulative bullshit. While she played the victim, I focused on protecting what was mine. I hired a lawyer, gathered even more evidence, and made sure I documented everything: her lies, her secret conversations, the money she'd siphoned off into that shady scheme. I knew I had to be strategic because she was good at twisting situations to her advantage. She'd threaten me, scream, cry, and try to make me feel guilty, but I refused to be manipulated anymore. I learned that the only way to win this was to stick to the facts and let the law do its job. One day, she stormed into my office, screaming about how I was ruining her life and how she deserved half the house because she invested her time and effort. I looked her dead in the eyes and told her she was full of shit. You lost everything: our savings, your integrity, maybe even your marriage, and I'm not giving you a damn thing till this is settled legally. That shut her up for a while, but I knew she was never going to accept that I was serious. She kept pushing, trying to spin her lies, but I was done. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. Not with money, not with my heart. Eventually, the court proceedings started, and I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I knew I was finally fighting for what's right. Dread because I knew she'd do everything to drag this out, to make me look like the bad guy. During the hearings, I presented all the evidence: the bank statements, the texts, the proof of her investments, the lies she told. It was ugly. She kept trying to deny everything, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The judge looked at her like she was full of shit, and I could see the wheels turning in her head, realizing she was losing control. In the end, I got what I wanted. The house was awarded to me, and she was ordered to pay back the money she stole and invested behind my back. It was a hard-won victory, and I felt exhausted but relieved. I knew I'd have to rebuild my life from scratch, but at least I was free from her lies and manipulations. She left the house in a fury, still insisting she was the victim, still trying to spin her story. But I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to move on, to find peace after the storm of betrayal. I learned a lot through this process: about trust, about greed, and about how far some people are willing to go for their own selfish needs. And honestly, I'll never let myself be like that again. Now that everything's settled, or as settled as it can be, I find myself looking back at this whole nightmare with a mix of relief and a strange sense of clarity. I never thought I'd be the guy who'd go through something like this, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. The betrayal cut deep, but it also taught me a lot about who I am and what I value. I realize now that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to fix. That's why I'm more cautious, more guarded, but also more determined to rebuild a life based on honesty and respect. I've learned that money can corrupt even the strongest relationships, and that greed and lies will always come to light sooner or later. Actions, her secret investments, her affair, cost her everything, and I've come to accept that I'm better off without her. The house, the savings, the years we shared, they're gone, but I've gained something more valuable, a renewed sense of self, and a commitment to never let someone manipulate me again. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also know that sometimes you're just blind to what's right in front of you. Now I'm focused on moving forward. I've started therapy, working on myself, and figuring out what I want from life beyond all the chaos. I don't plan to jump into anything serious anytime soon. Trust is too fragile after this. But I do know that I'm stronger than I thought, and I'll never let anyone take advantage of me like that again. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, here's my advice. Pay attention to the small signs. Don't ignore your gut. And if you find yourself betrayed, don't be afraid to fight for what's right, even if it costs you everything. Sometimes you have to lose everything to gain your freedom. And in the end, that's the most important lesson I've learned, that your integrity is worth more than any house, any money, or any lie.